I think when I was in the 8th grade, that's when I got hip to the Mexican Mafia through my dad and his associates. Then they took me to a dope fiend house, and they said that we're going to test you. And they just said, kill him. When we hold him, he's going to slam, let him go slam. He's going to sit down on the chair. And when you see us get on the side of him and hold his arms, he's not going to suspect you. You're just a little kid. Jump on his chest with a knife and start whacking him. So I did that, and after that, I think they used me about 2 or 3 more times.
I just took the initiative and I cut his throat on the yard and basically set an example for everybody out there that if you're going to run your mouth about the Nazi lowriders, we're going to try to kill you.
Well, I was asked to put somebody down on the yard because he was in the hat, what they call in the hat when they're in trouble with the Aryan Brotherhood. And I went out in the yard and I stabbed him, and I actually got away with it.
The Department of Corrections has defined gangs into 2 distinct entities. The first entity is that of prison gang. A prison gang is any gang that has its origins or roots in the California Department of Corrections or any other correctional system. The second entity is that of disruptive group, which does not have its origins in the prison system, and are gangs that most law enforcement officials are accustomed to dealing with, such as Crips, Bloods, Norteños, or Sureños. This is important in understanding the distinction of these 2 entities for outside law enforcement. As law enforcement officers, we often think that a gang member is a gang member is a gang member, and that's not the case. In dealing with a disruptive group gang member, he has some loyalties to the gang itself, but oftentimes is not willing to die or sacrifice himself or his family for that gang or that organization. Conversely, a prison gang member is willing to give his life, is willing to sacrifice his family and everything he has and owns for the purpose of that gang or organization. In the state of California, probably the most well-recognized and most powerful prison gang is known as the Mexican Mafia, or La M. The Mexican Mafia formed in Dual Vocational Institute, or DVI, probably around 1957, 1958, for the purpose of protecting Southern Hispanics from other racial entities. Another prison gang recognized by the California Department of Corrections is known as the Aryan Brotherhood, or AB. The AB was formed in the San Quentin State Prison. It has a tenuous alliance with the Mexican Mafia and has known enemies, the Black Guerrilla family and the Nuestra Familia. Another recognized prison gang is that of the Nazi Lowriders, or NLR. Historically, the NLR has been a white prison gang. It was actually started in the California Youth Authority, created a lot of problems for us within the prison system, and we're seen as rivals to the Aryan Brotherhood. We don't see that rivalry so much.
As soon as I got here, everything that I had thought about, wanting to be involved with this group, it was intensified. Because now I was in the house of the Brotherhood, which was a brand, and I wanted to be around them, and if they were willing to accept what we as the Nazi lowriders were bringing to the table, then I wanted them to respect us and I would give them their respect. But if their attitude was like I had heard that, they didn't have any time for us or they didn't want to pay us our respect, then I was going to actively pursue killing one of them. And shortly after that, we basically brokered a deal with the Aryan Brotherhood to bring the Nazi lowriders under their, kind of in with them. So basically, it would be one entity.
There is a faction of the NLR called the FTB, which stands for Fuck the Brand. Those are relatively small number. But the NLR, our understanding at Pelican Bay is that the NLR has adopted a policy of only recruiting and bringing in new members that are not of a mixed race.
This perception about the racism, it's not really racism whatsoever. It's like in a battle. I mean, if I line up across from you and you're my enemy in a battle, you're my enemy. The reason that it's considered racism is because it just so happens that the people that we're at war with are other races. When you come into the Department of Corrections, automatically the first thing that you're indoctrinated in is you stick with your race and that's it. That's just the California Department of Corrections. That's just the way it is. So I personally have no personal angst towards any minorities. My wife is Mexican, and she was my girlfriend when I was a Nazi lowrider. I have no problems against them. The way I looked at it was, if you were a northern Mexican or you were a black, you were my enemy. Not because of your race, but because of the political lines that you've drawn within the Department of Correction. It's all politics. So the race thing, as far as like, dealing with police officers or the general public, that's never been an issue.
Yeah.
Now, make no mistake, there are hardcore white supremacists involved with our movements. There are guys that would like to do away with having members of our groups that are of mixed race, because there are Nazi lowriders that are Mexican and white. I think there's even one that's like Filipino and white. And there are people that are members that are trying to get that done away with, saying that, we're not going to have these people involved with us. But the majority of us believe that it's all about where your heart is.
The Nuestra Familia has as enemies the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood, and has an alliance with the Black Guerrilla family to conduct its business. The Nuestra Raza, or Northern Structure, is also a prison gang. The Nuestra Raza could be akin to a AAA farm team for the Nuestra Familia. It has all the same belief systems, ideologies, and it's from the Nuestra Raza, or Northern Structure, that the NF recruits its new members. Another organization recognized as a prison gang is that of the Black Guerrilla family. It's comprised entirely of black inmates. A lot of people believe that the Black Guerrilla family has died out, that it took upon itself a political agenda in the 60s and early 70s, and a lot of people believe that that's died out. However, that's not the case. The Black Guerrilla family is still operating, still recruiting, and in many ways is way ahead of the curve in regards to the other prison gangs, in that it's morphed, changing its name, changing some of its methodologies in order to avoid detection by law enforcement. The last prison gang recognized by the California Department of Corrections is the Texas Syndicate. It was primarily comprised of Hispanic inmates that had migrated to California from Texas. Within the California Department of Corrections, the influence of the Texas Syndicate is very minimal. As a gang investigator at Pelican Bay, I wouldn't expect that very many law enforcement officials on the streets of California would have much contact with them, as they're a very small entity. Not every street gang member would qualify to become a prison gang member. The prison gangs, because of the type of criminal activity that they engage in and because of the way the organizations are structured, only recruit the cream of the crop. I like to think of it in terms of baseball. You have your street gang guy that the law enforcement officer is going to deal with on the streets, and I would equate him to being a single-A ball player. Now, that single-A ball player, once he's convicted in a court and sent to the prisons, operates on a whole different level and a whole different field of play with a different caliber of gang member. And I would equate those guys on our maximum security yards to double-A ball players. The next level would be the guys who act as the intermediaries between the guys on those level 4 yards and the prison gang members, and those would be your AAA ball club guys. Those guys are your prison gang associates. Those are the ones that are being looked at for recruitment to make membership. And then when talking about prison gang members, you're talking about the cream of the crop, the pro ball club.
I was like, there's got to be more. This shoe life is racking up to 15 years here, and it's like, you know what, this isn't much of a life. This is more or less an existence. And the people that I'm believing in, or the regime that I'm believing in, is actually turning out to have no actual foundation that they've built their structure on.
I started seeing that things that I had held respect for and things that I had actually felt were honorable, they really were nothing but people trying to boost their own egos within the system. They're a bunch of men that were never going home, that had life to do, that were trying to use people like me that did have a date to get them money on the streets, or they send somebody out there to kill somebody just so they could tell one of their partners that they had somebody killed out there. Like they had some kind of power. And it didn't really sit well with me that I was going to be used as a puppet like that.
One thing right now with the Mexican Mafia, they're targeting families now because of us dropping out and disassociating ourselves from the prison gang. My ex-wife just got killed. From my understanding, Los Angeles authorities down there, they pretty much have a feeling who it is, right? And I know the individual myself, and I'm pretty much assuming that he did commit the crime. But
and you think you know the particular motive Or
Yes.
the reason why he did?
Oh yeah, definitely, because he was my Sally, and he was my foot soldier. His agenda was, he's from the same gang that I was in the streets, but being that he's a youngster, he always wanted to be in good standings with me and other members of the Mexican Mafia. So he's gonna go out there and do what he has to do.
Why are you talking to law enforcement?
I want to take this opportunity to try to start to make amends for some of the things that I've done against our society. And secondly is because it really helps me being a parolee, being a felon. If I have things in my file that say that I've worked with law enforcement and I've helped you guys, it helps me in the future to get jobs. It shows that I am rehabilitated and I'm not just out there biding my time until I commit another crime.
When you come into prison, it's generally just like being drafted into the army. You know, as a white man, you know, there's certain expectations you're gonna have, as in, you know, working out, keeping physically fit, to passing messages to where even if they say like there's a sexual predator on the yard and you know, and they, you know, you don't get to raise your hand, they tell you to do something, it's expected of you to do, and that goes pretty much with anything. You don't have your own, you know, you're not your own man. You have to abide by the rules that have been laid down from long before I started doing time, and you know, and they vary from prison yard to prison yard, basically, but they're all basically the same rules that are, you know, that apply to us. They used to not get mad at you or this or that, and there was no repercussions if you couldn't do a stabbing or you couldn't sharpen it, or you know, you didn't want to do that. You know, you were just treated as a cast off, but now it's pretty much, it's forming into, you have to do things now. It's mandatory. There's more dog eat dog. It's like there's a lot of more bad calls now being done as a bad call, being like, this guy wasn't a rat, but by word of mouth, you know, somebody else that may have had a problem with this guy can say, hey, that guy's a rat, and then boom, that dude's taken down and he's not even a rat in his life. You know, he just, you know, he's expired.
You have
He's
to
dead.
overcome all the obstacles that are in your way of knowing what's going on in each pod. You know, like I was in an A pod, there was 2 other NLRs in there with me, and all the other guys were spread out throughout the building. So I'd have them sign up for the law library. When we would go over to the law library, I would get kites from all of them, and they would report to me what was going on in their pod. You know, any dealings with the other races, if they're having problems with their studies. At the time, I was putting emphasis on all the Nazi lowriders in the building learning Spanish, so that if we needed to communicate with each other over the tier, we could speak Spanish. We did this for about 1.5 years, and we completed our Spanish studies, and we all spoke Spanish fluently. So we could speak Spanish. The cops wouldn't know what we were saying unless it happened to be a Spanish-speaking police officer.
We'll have defense attorneys that already represented other members, you know, so they got a long history with them, you know what I'm saying? And it's usually these individuals that'll send defense attorneys down there, hey, I need you to go visit so-and-so. I need you to pass them this message. It's usually messages that are being passed, you know what I'm saying? So he'll go down to the county or he'll go to another prison and he'll pull that individual out for an attorney visit. Now, CDC cannot deny him that, you know, attorney-client privileges. So while they're there, you know, he'll pass whatever information he has going. Now, he may know it's wrong, but he's not going to say nothing because he's on a payroll. He's being paid. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You know, like money talks, bullshit walks. So he'll pass it. I mean, it's been known at times where they've, you know, took drugs to certain people in county, you know what I mean, or coming up to prisons, you know, where you have contact visits. They'll bring things in, you know what I mean, because, you know, everybody's dirty, you know what I mean, everybody has a flaw, you know what I mean, and it's just up to us to find that flaw, you know. If somebody doesn't want to work with us, you know what I mean, that's where extortion comes in, you know. We'll hire an investigator, you know what I mean, or we'll try to find out where dude lives, you know, check where his family's at, take photos of his kids. Next time he comes up, you know him, you know her, yeah, well, this is what we want, you know, force his hand, you know, he works with us, but most of the time they're willing, you know, because they got a long history with us.
What if they want to stop? I mean, they have a long history with you, and all of a sudden okay, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, then he's going to have to do what I did, you know, pretty much inform, you know what I'm saying, because, you know, you just can't walk away. You know too much, you know what I mean, you know too much. And to leave you out there with all that information is just a risk. It's a security risk. So more than likely, you know, something will be done to them, you know what I mean, but more than likely, a lot of them don't leave because the money's good.
How about the court system? Any way to manipulate the court system that your organization does?
Court system, we'll use them like to, get from one county to another county, habeas corpuses, to get people transferred down that way. Like, I was mentioning, to get somebody hit, you know what I mean? Or if we need somebody from another facility to come up because we need to get at them, talk with them, we'd have them subpoenaed or what have you in order to come down, and be able to take care of our business. You know what I'm saying? Defense attorneys, but we also went to the extent of trying to intimidate DAs. There's been a couple times where, contracts have been put on DAs.
To make them not prosecute.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, we'll do whatever means in order to help the organization advance. You know what I'm saying? So if it means, intimidating or taking out a DA, yeah, sure, why not?
While we were working the Mexican Mafia RICO in Los Angeles, we saw representatives from, dozens of gangs brought together, even though they were warring on the street. Mexican Mafia called them together in parks and ordered them to carry out their edicts in the community. And that was something to see. In fact, it took me a while to convince many law enforcement officials that such a thing was happening, and that taxation policies of the Mexican Mafia were being enforced on the street. Since they don't normally report this kind of thing to the police, we had to show them, some law enforcement officials, videotape of these meetings and the paying of these taxes in order to convince them.
So unless you're from like Lowell Street, Opal Street, Matavia, and you're not representing as a Sureño or Tiny Rascals, every other Southern California street gang is loyal to the Mexican Mafia.
Yes, and in a lot of ways they would be.
They'll put a green light on their neighborhood.
The Mexican Mafia will.
Yeah, they'll get a few associates from every gang and go to their neighborhood and just start getting off on them, shooting. Then they have to pay to get that green light off them. So they more or less got everybody loyal down there out of fear.
And were they a big influence within your community back when you were a youngster?
Yes, they've always been. You've always had one or two brothers from the neighborhood that basically they run the entire neighborhood. All the drug houses, you can't do nothing without them knowing first.
One person's transferring, say going out to court, we'd send him with what we call little huilas, kites, where he'd have them keyshire or he'd swallow. So when he transferred, he'd bring them out, hand them over to who he needs to hand them to. The same way goes for on the streets, somebody paroling. We'd send him with the whole roster of who needs to get hit, guidelines, what needs to be done, and he'd carry out those messages. To allow a gang member, like such our organization, to run something, that's the biggest thing you could do wrong. You know what I'm saying? From my experience, because now we have control. We're going to say whether you're going to have a good day or not. Not you. You know what I mean? And it allows us to conduct our activities. If we get a councilman or whatever to come talk with us, that just puts our foot in the door. Yeah, you know what? We'll help out the community. But now, what do we got coming? You know what I'm saying? Now once we got that understanding and we're not getting nothing back, well then, you know what? Let's let the community raise a little hell. You know what I'm saying? Basically the same thing, but on a larger scale. So you don't want to do that. Because you really don't have no cops around the neighborhoods and everything. Well, like us, our organization would send people out there, and they'd go out there, they'd put a stop to a lot of the violence that's taking place in that neighborhood. Or say you got a mom and pop store at the corner and you got people kicking back over there, a lot of gangbangers and stuff. Well, these individuals go there and, hey, get the hell away from here, make it safer for the moms and pop store, they get more clientele. We make the neighborhoods or communities a little safer for parents and their kids to go out there in the streets and play, right? And doing so because these parents and everything, they see this. They see what this individual or individuals are doing. You know what I'm saying? So, they're going to be more cordial to them. They're going to be more accepting of them. Even though they're committing illegal activities, they may not know of. All they're doing is trying to keep the community safe, right? So that way when law enforcement comes through and want to ask them questions about this certain individual, well, they're going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because automatically they're going to think, oh, here comes the cop. What's he want? He coming over here to harass us. You know what I'm saying? And why are we going to give up somebody who's doing something good for the community, for our neighborhood?
Once you parole from Pelican from a prison, from a level 4 prison, once you become a camarada or a soldier or a high-level associate, it doesn't matter where you're from. You can walk into any other neighborhood, unless you've got personal beef with that neighborhood, but You could walk into any other neighborhood and say, here, I'm here representing a carnal here, or a brother here. It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're there to deliver a message from the Mexican Mafia, you'll be respected and you'll be left alone. Because if they mess with you, then there'll be consequences to pay.
Yeah, I was a reserve regiment commander for the San Jose area, meaning that anybody paroling to the San Jose area or the Santa Clara County, little cities within there, well, they fell under my jurisdiction. The other fellow that was with me in charge, I've overseen it. So we'd educate people, send them out there, whether to be out there to do crime in order to funnel money back, send out hits, do murders, what have you. So anything that happened out there that the organization was doing, we was aware of it. We'd have them get into jobs that may open the doors for other parolees getting out there so they can get jobs there. Preferably, we like to get them in jobs where money laundering be feasible, such as restaurants, tattoo shops, where you have an endless amount of customers, you know what I'm saying? And it's real easy to just doctor the books and say, well, we had 20 customers come in this day. That's why we have this extra money.
And what kind of crimes were they involved in?
They were involved bank robberies, armored car robberies, extortion, money laundering, murder, intimidating witnesses, you know what I'm saying? Home invasions, anything that, if there was money to be made, we got our hands in it. Drug deals, prostitution, gambling houses.
Now that the Nazi lowriders have become, an entity of the brand, the AB now has 3,000 people, most of us aren't doing life sentences, that they can send out to the street to carry out their objectives. So as these people start getting paroled, you're going to be dealing with a higher caliber of individual, somebody that has a goal in his eyes, something that he wants. When I was ready to parole, 6 months before I decided to drop out, I was dead set on going out to the public and just wreaking havoc. I mean, doing everything I had to do to make money, to institute a powerful regime in my neighborhood, and to let people know that the Nazi lowriders were going to be a force in California. Fortunately, I came to my senses before I got out. But I know 4 or 5 people right off the top of my head that are paroling this year with those objectives in mind. And it's giving you something new to deal with out there. I mean, it's not just an NLR member getting out now that doesn't have any objectives, because before we got involved with the brand, we didn't really send people out there, hey, go do this or go do that. It was just like, hey man, you get out, have fun. They go out there, shoot some dope, have party, have some fun, get busted for something petty and come back to prison. Now, these NLR members are going to be held accountable for their actions when they parole. They can't just parole anymore, go out there and shoot dope and get with some broads and then come back and be comfortable, because they're going to get killed, they're going to get hit.
You can have a camarada do a hit for you. Like, let's say somebody wants somebody killed in the streets. You can have a guy paroling for Pelican Bay for $5,000. You can have this camarada kill him and the money goes straight to the brother. It doesn't even go to the guy doing a hit. I've seen that happen a lot.
So murder for hire.
Murder for hire happens all the time. Extortion, even dope trafficking, selling weapons. It's common practice all the time. They run together. They run together in prison, and let's say if some guys parole and Mexican Mafia members parole or Aryan Brotherhood members parole, and they get together out there and conduct business. It's not uncommon at all.
You'd have to exercise at least anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. You know what I mean? Both physically and mentally.
When that exercise, what are you doing?
Even though they took the weights, we still improvised by using magazines or what have you to make weight bags. Using each other, bench each other. In a prison setting, it's a hostile setting. You know what I mean? So you always got to be prepared for the unexpected when you least expect it. So, you got to stay in shape for that. Because if you're not in shape, you're going to get your ass whipped, or even worse, killed.
Me and the 2 other gentlemen that were leading the exercises would be up at 4:45. We would start our workout routine and be working out from about 5:15 in the morning until 11 o'clock. By the time we finished, we would eat our breakfast and then we'd study for the rest of the day. And all this was down, it was written in a book. I had an actual book of the rules of my building. And people that couldn't follow the rules, or they couldn't deal with the routine, or they couldn't get up on time. If you were 1 minute late for getting up, you would have to have a penalty for it.
We educate ourselves on our culture, which would be Mexican history, Aztec history.
How many of you, or people that are watching this video, have ever heard of Karl von Clausewitz? Probably none of you have even heard who he is. He basically revolutionized modern Western warfare. And what he did was he took a philosophy of war that was taking every aspect of warfare into account, planning for every little bit that would come up, considering how you're going to receive your information, the friction of your troops en route to their enemy, everything that you can come up with. And he put it all into a book, and it's basically a philosophy of warfare. And I've studied this book extensively.
We also had to learn like rules and regulations of the organization and lower gangs that we had in the households, and learn how to make weapons, do essays in order to better understand our principles and our objectives, in order to instill that into people's minds, so that way when they become participants within it, they're more loyal to it, they're more dedicated to doing it.
Did you utilize your training from the Marine Corps throughout your gang career?
Yes, I did.
Did you use your military training to teach?
Yes, I did.
Prospective gang members?
I started that when I was just in the regular gang.
The philosophy of the Marine Corps, did you Semper Fidelis and stuff like that?
Yes.
You blended over into the gangs?
It was basically like a gun-ho mentality.
Okay.
You know, there's some people back there who know how to box. So if they were in the cells together, they teach each other how to box. You know, if somebody knew any type of martial arts or stuff, you know, they would teach their own people how to do martial arts. You know, so these are things that people carry out there to the streets.
You guys watch Cops, the show Cops, and look for weaknesses either in policy, procedure, so that you can break it down and use it to your advantage at a later time when you were in the organization?
Those at times, yeah. We'd observe it, and, you know, we'd say, you know, hey, you know, the way he cuffed him up or the way he took him down or whatever, you could have done this, you know, or he could have done that. You know what I'm saying? You know, or like the way me and him were discussing one time, you know, such as getting rid of dope, you know what I'm saying, out of a car. You know what I'm saying? You know, you make certain turns so you can throw it a certain way and you'd be out of you guys' view. You know what I mean? Certain things, you know, how you guys would handcuff people, you know what I mean? Watch how cops come up close on people, you know, how they would approach a car, you know, because a lot of them would just go up there you know, just like nothing. You know, hey, roll down your window. You know what I'm saying? Not really knowing that, hey, dude may be up to something, he just may put a bullet in them. You know what I'm saying? Bam. You know what I mean? Or we also focus like, when you guys stop, okay, he's gonna come out and we're gonna take off. You know what I'm saying? That's your time to take off. You know, so yeah, we look at certain things. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you guys have you know, unlike us, you guys have policies and procedures that you guys gotta follow. We don't gotta follow those rules. You know what I'm saying? So we look for those weaknesses within your guys' procedures.
Do you guys go as far as doing certain things, like maybe reaching your hand out through a food port to see how the cop's gonna react? Maybe setting the cop up, doing certain movements, quick movements to see if the cop even reacts?
Yes.
I mean, you guys go that far?
Right.
To just see how we're gonna react, if
Test
we react?
reaction. Because all our tactics are built upon your reaction. You know, we do things to provoke a reaction from you guys and study it.
Did you ever practice in the cell if you were handcuffed?
Yes.
Kicking, jumping through the handcuffs?
Yes.
And how often would you practice that kind of stuff?
2 to 3 hours a day.
Coleman, could you demonstrate how you would defeat a handcuffing procedure by a law enforcement official?
Yes. Okay, so if you had your hands up here, right, and you brought one hand down here, and you try to get this one.
It's like that. Before he commits.
Before he commits to grabbing your other hand,
Exactly. The minute he has this one.
Mm-hmm.
What could a law enforcement official do to defeat what you would intend to do to him?
I would have him lay down on the ground and cuff him.
If you're doing a felony stop, put the guy on the ground and cuff him up.
Cuff him up.
Is there anything else? I mean,
have him lay down on the ground, put your knee in his back, so that way he couldn't maneuver out of anything. Have his hands above his head, bring him back, cuff him up like you normally do.
Because it's hard to move when you're just laid out flat.
Especially with the weight of a person on your back.
But don't dig the knee in there.
No.
What about balance? I mean, like if they had you spread your legs a little further than what you had there, you're still able to.
Yeah.
You had your hands up there. I brought one, brought her down.
Same thing.
Still
and
managed.
And if he tries to compensate, like say be kind of standoffish, all I have to do is extend with a fist a hammer fist.
Could he have his like if he's taking that hand down, your left hand down, could he have his right hand up on your elbow or something?
The brace? Yeah. But how you gonna do that and cuff me at the same time?
Yeah, of course.
Now you're in a tussle.
How about if your hands were behind your back instead of up on your head? You know, spread the legs a little bit further back, and if you put your hands behind your back, you know, like that, the officer reaches out. So you reach out. So you reach out with your left hand and take his right hand.
So
across that way to bring back and to be able to put a cuff on that. Yeah, grab him by the hand, by the palm of the hand. Down. Yeah, something that's similar. Yeah. What kind of move do you make from there? Just coming up with the left hand?
Follow through with it.
Is there any safe way to handcuff standing up other than, you know, not laying somebody on the ground, because you can't lay everybody out all the time?
But the fingers in the lock is difficult. Like it's difficult for a person to maneuver, to spin. Okay, but the safest way would be to put him on the ground, put some weight on him so he can't maneuver at all. That just alleviate all of it.
So if you had your fingers in a lock, say like you had them interlocked behind your hand, if you were to grab your fingers and hold your fingers, if it's going to go to cuffing at some point, you got to unlock.
Right, then it's an opportunity.
But while the fingers are interlocked and he has a good grip on the fingers, is it more difficult to move and try anything that way?
Have him interlock his fingers?
Yeah, okay, do it that way. Grab the fingers there. Put one hand across and hold the fingers down.
Like that?
Yeah, say you just go into search.
That's the best thing you can do.
That's the best way to do it right there.
Officer puts handcuffs on you. Is that officer safe at that point?
Not all the time, because we train to kick, groin area, legs, learn what angles to kick, because the easiest way to break a joint is to go this way, cross it. So like if I'm cuffed up and let's say the sergeant, I'll just tell extracting the sergeant right there, I might just kick downward in that angle and break his leg. Just like that.
Could you demonstrate what you would do if an officer was to strike you with a baton? If you were in a combative position?
If he was to strike me, he'd come this way.
That's right.
What I would do, I would go in close, because the full blunt of the blow, the power is at the end of the extension. So I would block it close, go for leverage, hit it down, spin it down.
So those are the kind of things that you're practicing day in and day out in your cell, and you're training other. Anything else that you worked on, practice?
Could you also pull them in?
Yeah, some kind of things you do. Well, other things that we practice is like person stabbing an officer. Okay, like for say you have your vest on, there's soft spots on the vest, so we go for armpits. Here, here, and here. Now the idea is, even if you don't have a vest, sometimes the knife gets stuck or whatever. You got these inmate manufactured weapons. Sometimes they ain't strong or durable as we expect them to be. So what we do is, any knife, go straight in. When you go straight in, pull straight out, go straight in, push them off balance, hit them again, straight out, hitting soft target, like that. So, like that.
In the organization that you come from, the BGF, they have a reputation for studying anatomy.
Yes.
What areas on the body are you looking to strike if you're going to strike an officer?
Well, you have your bladder, you have your diaphragm, you have your lungs, you have your heart. You have up here some arterial arteries up in here behind your clavicle, and then you have your jugular. Then you have your temples. Then you have the back of it's part of your brain stem in the back of the head. Those would be places I would put a knife.
And those are things that you studied in the cell. You got anatomy books, looked at them, practiced on them.
Drew a picture on the wall and practice.
For hours at a time.
Until I got it right.
If you're not going to follow the rules that are set by the academy and what they teach you in the academy, you could pay for it with your life. I mean, here's an example. When I was up here in Oregon, I did something down in Southern California and I had to go on the run. So I came up here to Oregon and I started committing robberies and burglaries. These people have so many guns in their houses up here that it's just crazy. You know, I had an apartment that was full of semi-automatic rifles, handguns. It was just full of them. Well, me and my girlfriend at the time, we had a little dispute. Somebody called the police. So automatically I assumed that the police were showing up because I had been doing these robberies and these burglaries. So when I went to the door, I put a .357 in my pants and pulled my shirt over and it was loaded. So So they pull me out to the front yard and they're talking to me, and the whole time that I'm talking to them, I got this gun right in my waistband, and I'm thinking, you know what? I could just take these dudes out right now. There were a couple of older guys, you know, they were kind of like hillbillies, and they were paying no attention to what was going on. Then they started asking me questions about me having a dispute with my girlfriend. I realized that they weren't there to bust me for the burglaries or anything like that, so I kind of let my guard down. They thought I had been hitting on my old lady because her sister had called the police because we were wrestling, and it was nothing. So I cleared it up, and I was getting ready to go when a detective shows up. They put me in cuffs, and they take me down to the station. They didn't search me. I was sitting down at the station, cuffed up, sitting in a chair for about 4 hours. Finally, once I figured out that they were going to end up letting me go, I told one of the cops, hey man, why don't you just go ahead and grab this right here? And he lifted up my shirt, and I had the gun right there. I mean, it was totally up to me what I did with that gun. I chose not to use it. But when they saw, I mean, I could see the expression in their face. It was just, they were sick. I carried a knife in my ass for 6 months so that the first chance I got, I could stab somebody, okay? That's how serious I took what I was doing.
And even if that's just what he's saying is a 2% factor, in reality, this might be the 2% factor you'll be confronted with.
When we stab somebody in here, we're doing it with somebody pointing a rifle at us. You know, it's every time I've stabbed somebody in prison, it's been right under a gun tower with a guy holding a Mini 14, knowing damn well when I went to go stab the guy that dude up there was going to try to shoot me. You know, it's like you become, and once you start dealing with those situations, dealing with a cop, I mean, the difference between us and your average criminal is they don't have that edge. They don't have the ability to pull the trigger. They don't have the ability to act aggressively on a spur's moment. Just the thought arrives and you act on it.
We don't teach these guys in here to take you for granted as police officers.
No, definitely not.
And your academy shouldn't be teaching them to take us for granted because, like he's saying, you know, these people are coming out here, they're playing for keeps, just like you're playing for keeps so you can go home every night.
You know, one of the main things, like I said, we're involved in bank robberies and so forth. Well, we'll do a 30-60-day observation out there on a certain area that we want to hit. And now with the cops, every so often they'll pass by a certain bank. You know what I'm saying? And we know this because of past experiences. So we keep track, okay, when the cops come around, okay, where they go to have their lunch break. Because usually you guys have a certain place where you guys go eat. You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's where they're at. You know what I mean? Okay, they should be coming by any moment. So we keep track of that as well. So that whenever the bank robbery has to go down, okay, this is how much time we have before they come cruising by. You know what I'm saying? So we keep track of all that. You know, observation is one of our main keys.
One time we had an officer that was harassing some apartment complexes that I took care of business in when I was involved in selling drugs and stuff. And he was like real aggressive, you know, the kind of dude, hands-on, beat you up kind of dude. And what we call an oppressive pig, you know. But so what winds up happening, he kept on coming in, checking this one vacant apartment. That was his excuse to come fuck with everybody, come mess with everybody. So one day, me and a friend of mine, we went inside the apartment and waited for him to come because we knew he would come. And I had a fully automatic, a MAC-10, and my friend had a Tech-9. And the idea was, being that he had a partner, was he's gonna come check the door. My friend busts on him through the door, and I would shoot at his partner through the window because the design of the apartment is the way it was. We'd have had him pinned down. Just so happens they were called to another call or something. He didn't come down the terrace, and he went on about his business. He made it. He escaped. But that's what I was saying. We knew by his routine he would use that to come fuck with somebody, and we waited for him.
But also studying the way that they operate in tactical moves. When they do a prison hit, they rehearse it. You know, there's often a person that's a lookout. There's a person who's going to actually make the hit. There's a backup unit. There's a person who creates a diversion. There's people who deliver the weapons. There's people who take the weapons out of view. There's an armor, you know, and tacticians who plan these moves. So the more familiar you are with that kind of a situation, the more it's going to help you. Not just in the environment of custody, but when you go to the street. A 211 team is made up just like a prison hit team.
And a joint force task force of this county, this city, CDC, FBI, goes out to take these gang members down in these neighborhoods, and when they file their reports, one guy might not black it out, this guy might put this guy puts that guy puts this. So now all these gang members in the shoe have all the identities of your undercover narc cars, detective cars, your beeper numbers, your names, what car you drove at the time of the incident, because one faction don't know what the other faction is doing when they file their reports. So all that information is passed down to the Board of Prison Terms, and they got to supply the prisoner with a copy of his violation report from all these agencies. You know what I mean? Your badge numbers too are all in
Your
there.
badge numbers on all our reports. I mean, when you put your badge number on it, that's basically like putting your ID card on it. Because, I mean, we under the premise of something else, we can call the police station and we can decide that we want to file a report against you or a complaint. And then once we file this false complaint, we use your badge number, we file the complaint, and from there we can find out what doors we need to open to find out more information about you.
So when you think you got a beat on this guy, he knows you're following him. He knows what you're driving. That's a cop right there. So he's going to take you off on a little trip, you know what I mean? Stop here, stop there, contact this dude. You never know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? He might take you down an alley, and when you drive through the alley, there's dudes standing right there with semi-automatic rifles and just blast you. And he just keeps driving. You're going to hit a garage, you're dead. You know what I mean?
The organization's taking a different approach, and we're not allowing members now to get any tattoos, especially where they're visible. Don't dress up all bagged up. If you have to wear some tight jeans, wear some tight jeans. Look like your average Joe out there. Get yourself a job, go to school. If you're working during the day, then you're committing crime at night. If you're working at night, then you're going to be committing crimes in the day. But basically what we try to do now is have them change their appearance, have them change the way they talk, because if you notice, there's a difference. If you get a gang member from the streets and you get someone out the shoe, you're going to see their vocabulary is a lot different. One's going to sound more educated than the other. Now, if you can go out there with his appearance altered, looking different, blending in with people, but as well as his dialogue, his conversation, well then, more than likely, people ain't going to really focus on him because he's blending in with society.
If he walks up to me and he has an air of confidence, I don't care how he looks, I'm going to deal with him accordingly. I'm going to know that this dude, maybe he's not in the greatest shape, but he's got that air of confidence about him. He's looking at me in my eyes when he's talking to me. He's not, trying to be overly friendly, so I'm going to deal with it. Number two, I'm going to look at his physical shape, the shape he's in physically. Is he dumpy? Does he look soft? Does he look like he stays in shape? Because if he takes care of his body, chances are he takes care of his mind as well. They go hand in hand. And if he's taking care of those things, he's going to be difficult for me to deal with. And then beyond that, I'm just going to have to pick and choose, I'm going to look at possibly the fact of, how old does he look? Does he look like he's been on the force for a long time? And also the factor of being male or female is going to come into play too.
How so?
Because, this sounds really vicious right here, man, but maybe it's just me, but ain't no woman gonna whoop me. That's the bottom line. And that's it. And if I see a female officer, I'm gonna feel more confident having to deal with her than I would with a man.
But when they go out of their way to make you feel uncomfortable and little knee in the head or something, then you want to just turn around and start getting off.
Target you as a person instead of just doing their job.
Right.
I think a lot of officers basically that sometimes they'll let the job get to their head.
Right.
Or they think they're above the law.
But if you pull me out of a car and want to gaffle me up and grab my nuts and just, pretty much put me out there on the highway to be looked at, I'm going to get angry, and
what do you mean though when you get, I'm going to get angry?
Well, because I
do something then, or?
Well, hey, and it wouldn't matter if it's male or female because, there's a common sense of respect there for who I am and who you are, and I feel you violated that by confronting me with no reason, Maybe you have profiling issues or whatever, and you want to jack me up without giving me what I feel is my due respect. Yeah, it's going to get confrontational.
An officer on the streets could know this individual from being a street gang member and know that, hey, the guy's not really on the ball. He's just a flunky. He's out here slinging crack. he goes to prison, ends up under the umbrage of this organization, comes back out a year and a half later, and now that officer is dealing with somebody completely different. The officer may not know that, but in reality, he's dealing with a completely different person, having been educated by your organization.
Oh yeah, mandatory. Because one thing about our organization, our thing is education. You know what I mean? And we're going to educate them. A lot of things, like I said, art of war, art of leadership, concepts, Mexican, Aztec history, business. So they're going out there educated, you know what I'm saying? And they're going out there better trained, more physically fit, and they're going out there with the goal because they want to, exceed where the older homeboys are at. They want to be somebody, you know what I'm saying? They're more disciplined, they're more dedicated, so you're dealing with a whole different person. He's a walking weapon for us, whether it be mentally or physically. We look at gangbangers, like I said before, wandering clouds of shit. They have no self-worth in life. They have no goals in life. You get someone coming out of prison like an NF member, well, I got goals and objectives. You know what I mean? Whether I got to, bootlick the police officer for 5 minutes in order to get away, that's what I'm going to do. You know what I'm saying? If I got to do some physical harm to the police officer in order for me to get away, that's what I'm going to do. But in dealing with somebody coming out of prison, you got to understand that he's calculating everything. You know what I'm saying? He's being observed, he's being patient. What calls for what? You know what I'm saying? He's using his mind more instead of just reacting to a certain situation. Like you got youngsters out there, so it's a totally different situation. You can find yourself dead or hurt or, hey, going home that night.
And a law enforcement official on the street needs to understand many of these guys have been hit with impact rounds 4, 5, 6 times. They've been sprayed with pepper spray. They've walked through CN and CS in order to complete their mission. They're not just going to quit because you're telling them to do so or because you've deployed some munition or tool to get them to stop.
If I was on a mission and you caught me on the way to do it, I would definitely be looking to take your life. And it would be a quick thing. And it wouldn't be about the assessments that I would make of you. Either way, they aren't going to impede me from doing what I have to do. They're just going to help me in judging how I'm going to carry it out. Because if I think that I can just really overpower you physically, I might try to do it quietly. But if I think that I would have problems, then I'm just going to shoot you. And that's basically what it means. It doesn't mean it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. It's just how it's going to happen. Personally, my plan had always been really simple. If someone pulled me over during the commission of a crime or after having just committed a crime, I would just wait for him to come to my window, and as soon as he stuck his head in there, I would shoot him. And that's pretty cut and dry. I wouldn't shoot him from a distance. I would not want to get into a shootout with him because I'm scared of guns. I don't like bullets coming at me. If I shoot somebody, I don't want them to be shooting back at me. So I want to basically catch them when they're slipping.
If they're in the process of committing a crime, and they know they're going to get busted, well, most of the time they'll wait because in prison as well as in the streets, patience is a virtue. So what we do, we always look for that weakness that a police officer commits. One thing that we always found out that a lot of police officers like putting their heads down when they like to write, or they like to get too little close, not really pay attention to the individual, because a lot of police officers, they want to exert their authority. They think just because they're in blue or they have a badge, I'm the man here, I'm more superior than you, he ain't gonna do nothing to me. I'm badass. But they fail to realize that a lot of individuals coming out now, well, they're gonna take these opportunities. They catch you looking down while you're writing, you're up too close, whatever, they're gonna take one. They're gonna try to take you, in order to get out of there.
And 9 times out of 10, if there's more than one person in that car going to do a target,
you're washed up.
You better get back up before you even approach that.
I don't know what your first...
Because if I'm with him, I already know what he's going to do. He's got 2 strikes. He ain't going back to prison.
And we ain't leaving our partner behind.
We take into consideration the fact that when you make initial contact with us, it's going to be a one-on-one situation. And we're going to have the advantage because we know what you're bringing when you're walking up to us. You're bringing your gun, you're bringing your radio. And if you're alone, if you don't have a partner, that's all you're bringing. You have no idea what I have waiting for you in my car, in my waistband. You're basically walking up onto the situation cold. And at that moment in time, I have an advantage over you. This is something that we talked about a lot. And that's where the aggressiveness comes into play. You know, if I take aggressive steps then, when I have the advantage, chances are I'm going to win. If I wait until you have a chance to make your call and backup arrives, I'm going to get caught because there's no way I can deal with the whole police force.
Put it this way, it's either your life or the law enforcement's life. So if he's coming in between your mission or your objective, even if he's just pulling you over and you haven't completed your task yet, you're gonna come back here and you're gonna have reprisals against you. And if you can't clean that up some way, then it's your life in danger. And that's the way people look at it. So of course their objective is gonna be, whether they're pulled over, it's gonna be, you know, if they got a gun, they're gonna use it, you know, because otherwise it's their life that's in danger coming back here without completing their mission.
While you were at Pelican Bay, you were involved with Raul Leon?
Amongst other Mexican Mafia members, yeah. Mainly him, because he's from my neighborhood.
Can you detail the elaborate escape plot and how it was going to impact local law enforcement in Crescent City?
We were going to get these guys that were getting ready to parole to come back up here and break some of us out. It was being financed by a guy named Bat Marquez. He was involved with the Aryan cartel. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with him. He was going to supply the money, the weapons, and the safe route out down to Mexico. We did several. I myself did 3 dry runs. I ingested some crystal meth while I was in the SHU and complained of chest pains. When I was taken out to see the doctor, my heartbeat was obviously racing from the methamphetamine that I had ingested, and they took me out. My mission was to count how many guards were with me, how many guns I counted, literal guns, how many guns they were carrying, the route that we took. And it was scarily simple the way this was done. I counted at the most 3 guards with me and 4 guns.
So there was a person on the outside coming up to visit that did his dry runs from his end.
Yes.
That was going to facilitate the gang members when they actually came up.
Yes. They just scope out how the hospital was, possible getaway routes, all that. You guys were going to be waiting at Sutter Coast where the ambulance showed up. You know it's a CDC transport because you have a CDC car behind them. As soon as the CDC staff gets out, they were supposed to kill all the COs that were escorting them, kill everybody around, put him in a van and drive him out.
From San Diego to Crescent City, had they been stopped,
they would have shot.
They would have shot.
They were shot instantly. They were shot immediately.
You had a running gun battle with those officers.
Because they know once you accept a mission like that, you don't want to sit in the county jail in LA or wherever you got stopped and writing a letter to Pelican Bay and say, oops, we're sorry, we got pulled over. Because then these guys would be in the hat. I mean, they would get killed. They would be marked for assault.
And some of those guys have paroled from Pelican Bay that you're aware of?
Yes, 3 that I know of right now.
This plan is still, to your knowledge?
Hey, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. You guys have done a pretty good job at isolating this guy and cutting off some of his communication. But as far as I know, the last time I was at the Bay, the last thing we heard, this plan was still in motion. This plan was still, as of right now, is still in motion. Pomona?
Right.
Pomona, that, in my opinion, it was a big mistake. Look at what happened. Look at what happened. They just went into the neighborhood and started picking everybody up. I can tell you, if I was back at Pelican Bay, still active, a lot of brothers would be very, very upset at what took place. And unless it was a specific hit, which I don't think it was, they would be very upset because they just went in and raided all their houses. They lost all that money. They lost all those soldiers in the streets because this one youngster got crazy and went and killed a cop. I wouldn't be surprised if this youngster gets stabbed in the institution pretty soon.
Why?
Because he brought all this heat upon all these guys because he went out there and got crazy and shot a cop for no reason, for no apparent reason.
What about the situation in Oceanside where the word was out that the mafia sanctioned assaults on police officers?
Oh, I've been a part of that too. I mean, like I said, it happens. It happens when you feel like, and I don't want to use the word justified because it's never justified to go out and assault anybody, especially cops. But when the Mexican mafia feels that an example needs to be set, that you just cannot allow these cops to just go around pushing you around or shooting one of your own. Yeah, they do sanction hits against cops, but you'll know when it's a sanction hit by the Mexican mafia, by who does it, by the way it's carried out. You'll know when it's Mexican mafia hit. But it does happen. It does happen. They tend to stay away from it But when they feel that they need to do it, they've got no problem sanctioning hits against cops. It just happened in San Diego.
So the one in National City, those orders came out of Pelican Bay?
Oh, it came directly out of Pelican Bay. Yeah, it was a youngster, a young kid that got shot by a National City police officer, and they felt that it was wrong. So they put out a green light on National City cops, say we want a cop dead by anybody, any cop. And then they sent out word out there, say they started shooting cops. Yeah, that came out straight out of Pelican.
Do gang members in Pelican Bay SHU or in general, do you guys work or practice at sizing people up?
Oh yeah, it's
Do you size them up physically? Do you size them up mentally?
You size them up every which way, physically, mentally. You try to break them down. You try to break them, even though it's a person who might not even think, that would do something for you. I mean, what is it? It's a 115. That's nothing compared to the outcome if you do get to crack one and get the correctional officer or the free staff working for you. What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose.
How many times do you recall getting subpoenaed out to court for the sole purpose of conducting Mexican Mafia business?
Numerous times.
I've subpoenaed people.
You've had people subpoenaed so that they would show up at a specific location so you guys could conduct?
Yeah, well, I had them subpoenaed from Pelican Bay here to go down to Sacramento when we were fighting our case. And you would get so many members and members from the AB, a few blacks, and maybe one victim that we're going to go after.
And you'd subpoena the victim as well?
Yeah.
If he wasn't already where you were at?
Yeah.
Los Angeles was always one of the spots,
hot spots for
that we used to get subpoenaed down there, go down there for specific reasons to conduct Mexican Mafia activity.
And so that's part of your networking tool.
Yes.
Do gang members, do they sometimes maybe partake in prison crimes specifically so they can get court appearances?
Well, they want to stay in the county jail. They say, pull me down, let me catch a case so I can be down there for a while. Because that's where all the drugs are at, quick visits, and it breaks up time. Instead of being in the same joint for a long time.
Right.
So that's a place to go, down to court.
What's going to happen when, say, Epi was still in the organization and you go back to a county jail and nothing's really happening? What should the deputies in that jail expect is going to happen either while you're there or after you've left?
No, they're going to expect a lot of change. They're going to see a lot of difference. You're going to see people, educating, exercising. Things are going to be more quiet. But now, just because we're cool and everything doesn't mean that we're not doing what we have to. We're going to be, teaching weaponry. We're going to try to find ways to get drugs in, how to get drugs out, how to put hits down. And this is what's going to take place. But we train our people to stay away from the light of you guys. So that way COs don't focus on us, because the less heat comes on us, the more we're capable of carrying out our activities. And then, like, say if I got there, I would set up a chain of command. I'd be up here, I'd have one person below me, another person be below him, and then you'd have your soldiers, depending on the manpower that you got there. Now if I happen to leave, well, there's somebody there who's going to step up to my spot. So you got reserve commanders. So that way the unity and the activities going on there stays intact. So that way when these individuals happen to come up to prison, they pretty much know what to expect when they come up here. Because they've already been they've had a taste for it.
Well, let me ask you, if you're at Pelican Bay and for whatever reason you get subpoenaed to go out to court to a county facility, is there status attached to coming out of Pelican Bay, either the GP or the Pelican Bay SHU?
Oh, quite naturally. Like down there where I'm out of LA County Jail, and they have a high power section in our jail. And when I went back out to court, there was Nazi lowriders, and then say if an Aryan Brotherhood member comes down out to court, whichever white man has the tier tender job at the time, which is, he gets 3 hours out in the tier to use the phone and all that stuff, just to sweep and clean for 5 minutes, but he gets that phone for 3 hours and run the tier and do what he wants. That status is automatically his. Plus, he picks up automatically the keys per se to the house. What I'm saying? It's like, he's the management, the landlord. The police are not the landlord. The dictator is the Aryan Brotherhood, or the Nazi lowriders or whoever is sanctioned by the brand or one of those prison gangs to, you know, sanctioned who runs the house if one of them aren't there, and that's who you have to adhere to. You don't listen to the police.
You guys have been patted down probably thousands of times since you've been in custody. How often in all those times has a police officer, correctional officer, really checked in and around your groin to see if you've concealed something?
Should I've had him raise it and didn't even notice. It was always something right there.
Like out here on the main line, what some of us would do we tied something on the penis itself. You know what I'm saying? Because
knowing that the cop's not going to touch you.
Yeah, they ain't going to just grab you. So it'd be right there. I mean, they would hit the underside of it. Like when they come up, they hit the underside. All right, no problem. You know, but there's a lot of times too, like you guys don't run, you guys just hand up people's cracks. You know what I mean? So there are times that we just chick a piece, meaning that we have the piece just between our butt cheeks and we'll just keep it secured there. Because we're like this, you can secure something, have your legs open and won't fall out. And all you guys are doing just this. It could just be in between the cheeks, or it could be, you know, tied onto the penis.
The Mexican Mafia today is in the position that the Sicilian Mafia would have been in 1920 in New York or 1930 in Chicago. Many people look at them as being thugs, but these thugs are becoming more and more sophisticated, and eventually their sophistication level will reach the point that they'll be the mafia of Los Angeles. Instead of the 5 families, you might have the 5 gangs, controlled each by a charismatic leader of the Mexican Mafia, if we came to that. And the whole idea is that we are going to be proactive, which we always talk about in law enforcement, we sometimes don't do, and stop that from happening before we become, you know, like New York or like Chicago.